I think you gotta like Wunderbar as the favorites in Workshop because more went wrong for them in the earlier matchup between these two teams on that map, and they were still able to win it. So I think their strategy is maybe a little faster.
All right, let's see as both teams got to capitalize on, not making the same mistakes they had earlier. Let's get it going. Game number 1 in our grand finals right here in Workshop.
Alright, so we're already starting here with the trash group and already different strats coming in. Wunderbar dealing with the trash, not actually utilizing the hammers. Now, these mobs actually dropping bombs on the floor that detonate and do damage the mobs as well. It's not just the hammers that help you out, but also the bombs that you drop on the floor. And that's why Wunderbar had a very interesting strategy. They were gathering the trash up, and then they all gathered on top of the trash to make sure that the bombs are spawning on top. And then now we're slowly kiting the trash over the bombs to get that friendly fire. And it looked like it paid off for them because they managed to clear the trash a little bit faster, and therefore the boss spawned faster as well.
And what's crazy to me is this actually happened to them in their previous matchup in Workshop as well, where they were only a second or 2 seconds apart at the end. They had that same thing happen. Golden Guardians didn't quite deal with the bombs as fast as Wunderbar did, but they were still able to complete this boss faster purely because of the way they do the hammers, right? Making sure they get no mercy charge on the 4th hammer rather than the 3rd so they can put more damage into Platinum Pummeler here. Let's see if Wunderbar just made a mistake with their strategy last time and they're able to pull that off here, because that was like a 30-second time loss for them last time.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit different last time. We do see that No Mercy is going to get finished off with that hammer here, or close to actually, 6% left for Wunderbar, as Golden Guardians are just carrying around No Mercy here from hammer to hammer. Sally going down, actually. They are committing a battle rest, but I'm okay. So Sally is actually accepting the battle rest, which is really just a time thing because there's no way to need the healing anymore. It's only the Platinum Pummeler alive, there's no more damage to heal away. But because the hammers do more damage, the more people trigger it, they decided to actually get the rest off on Sally just for a pure time save of how close this game was last time around.
And it looks like Golden Guardians wasn't as successful in dealing with that last hammer smash as they were last time, so even though they're able to get the same time kill on their kill, looks like Wunderbar is killing the boss a solid 25 seconds faster than they did last time. Of course, with the main caveat being that Zalia died, they don't have that battle res available for the next 8.5 minutes in this dungeon. We'll have to see if that's going to be something that causes problem for them later on, because if they need to battle res somebody on this next boss, that could bite them horribly.
Yeah. Definitely, they can't make any more mistakes from here on out. You will see the skip come in by both of those teams. The tanks just running through, making sure they get aggro, and then they are shadow melting off the aggro before they engage Kujo. Of course, it is bolstering, so this trash that they just skipped is very inefficient to play, just because the living waste have much less HP than the other mobs, and therefore it's just something you do not really want to deal with, at least not with the living waste.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we're probably going to see similar strategies from what we've seen as well once they just deal with those few ads afterwards. It's really going to come down to, it looks like those single target damage here. We talked about this a lot last time in the workshop here. We saw the massive amount of single target damage coming out of Zalia on the last boss here. It was definitely a question mark as to whether or not the corruption was the main issue, but really, we know corruption, even when you're playing perfectly, doesn't really amount to much of a difference. You still have the same corruption budget with all of your corruption. It might come out to maybe 3 or 4k single target DPS if you're playing perfectly. So really, it must have just been that JB felt like he had to keep his team alive, whereas Zalia was comfortable enough with his teammates keeping themselves alive and was able to pump out more damage global cooldowns than JB was. They're really going to have to try to step that up here because they know even if they have better execution in the dungeon, the greater single target damage from Wunderbar is always going to be something just looking over their shoulder.
Yeah, and if a little bit of a mistake here for Golden Guardians, as Lydie didn't position the boss onto the corner for JB to still attack. Of course, the Hunters were still able to attack because there is a position where you can stand and you do not get hit by the AoE, but you can still attack the boss. But it wasn't close enough for JB to attack the boss because, of course, for melees it needs to be a little bit closer. That's why JB actually dropped 10k DPS here just because of this fact that the boss wasn't close enough. And these things really matter. That's why Wunderbar actually finishes off this boss quite a bit faster compared to Golden Guardians, even though Golden Guardians did save that Bloodlust for Kujo, while Wunderbar did use it on the first boss.
Yeah, I mean, that's 2 million extra damage dealt by your healer on the boss, and you can see the difference here. It's going to be about a 10-second differential here in this boss timer, which is a massive deal when we saw them only winning by 2 seconds earlier on. We're going to have to see more damage and better execution coming from Golden Guardians to work their way back into this matchup, because I don't think Wunderbar is a team that will make the same mistake twice in a row.
the disturbance.
Yeah, definitely not. We see them already fighting this gauntlet here. Can utilize the spell reflect from the warrior pretty well here as well, getting those casts through. It is bolstering, so you definitely still want to even out the damage. Don't want to just spell reflect the casters and let the guards go through. That's why the hunters are probably focusing the guards, while the spell reflect is being used by now to even out the damage.
Yeah, and I'm just taking a look at their corruption choices here. They're running they're both healers are running the exact same thing as last dungeon here, just sticking to their guns. The expedient / gushing wounds hybrid coming out from Xaylia, and the full versatility build coming out from JB, just playing it super safe without too much of a damage loss. And yeah, it's really just going to come down to execution here. You can see that Wunderbar is just that 15 or so seconds ahead in terms of execution. They're on the same trash pull right now, but they still have half of the health bar to deal with on the side of Golden Guardians.
Yeah, and I mean, you gotta look at the damage, really. I mean, even though, of course, the healers and the tanks do a lot less damage than the hunters most of the time, but sometimes they can really just burst a lot, and it really makes a difference when the games are so close between those two. You can see Xaylia doing up to 70k single target DPS to this mob here, and 100k early in the trash before. And also JB just pumping 80k single target DPS onto this single mob. That's just an insane amount of damage coming out of those healers.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, once again, just holding that slight 15-second lead, it's really hard to mention that. I mean, these teams are just so good. You don't see any real mistakes coming out of them. It almost always just comes down to execution-based strategies. The DPS, yeah, that's a minor thing that could make up for a difference over the entire dungeon. But any minor mistake, you know, maybe bad bolstering management in the last pack or any of these big packs actually, or just a death somewhere could spell the difference with how close these teams are.
Yeah, definitely. You see Wunderbar and Golden Guardians dealing with this Void Weaver here, just because it's very efficient to use the Obelisk here to skip to the next boss, because this gauntlet is something that can cost you a lot of time if you have to wait in the vents and you can't walk through those spots. That's why we've seen almost every team deal with this Void Weaver so far and play the last 3 obelisks or awakened mobs with the last boss. And Wunderbar now already engaging that boss, while Golden Guardians are slightly behind, but it's not as big of a difference. And you also got to consider the 5 seconds in favor of Golden Guardians. Oh
yeah, it's definitely going to add up here. We were just mentioning it. That's not something you want to have happen. Fortunately for them, it didn't happen in boss combat, so they didn't have to worry about resetting the boss without having a battle res available, because that right there would be the opening that Golden Guardians needs to just guarantee themselves this map. But for what it's worth right now, they're able to catch up in single target damage here and bring the bosses to roughly the same percentage here. I mean, these guys are neck and neck.
Yeah, this is incredibly close. I mean, it is a Tyrannical environment, so percentage is quite a bit, but it's still so incredibly close. With the 5 seconds, I mean, anything could happen in this dungeon. The percentage, of course, is completely even. Both of them are on 41%. They actually have the exact same pulls in the dungeon as we've seen last time that they played against each other. And we do know as well that they're going to pull some trash on top of this boss at the very end, which can be very dangerous because it is bolstering. And this boss by itself already has so many mechanics that you need to dodge, with those cogwheels going around and the fire that needs to be dodged everywhere. And on top of that, you also have to handle the trash at the same time.
It's a really finicky thing too as well, because you want to make sure you do it in between those flame jets from the center here, so you don't have to worry about kiting the trash around the room. But one of the things you can do if you're not too worried about it is you can stand in these damage reduction aura circles that come from the Tinkerers, but it looks like they're just not letting them go through. Usually okay, it's on the stairs right there, which is interesting because you can just Z-axis the flame vents on the stairs there as well. So there's another shield generator down that people can use, but you just leave it down, actually. I don't think you can cleave those down. I'm pretty sure you have to single target those down, which is really weird that it died. But it doesn't even matter. The boss is already dead. The flame jets aren't going to be a major issue for them as they just deal with the rest of the trash here. Fantastic cleave execution from Wunderbar there, whereas Golden Guardians, not quite the same on their end. Wunderbar had the trash essentially dead by the time the boss went down, but you can see Golden Guardians here, multiple trash mobs still alive, some of them as high as 40% HP, which can be an issue for bolstering here, so it's going to take a little bit more time for them to clean it up.
Yeah, definitely a little bit less efficient by Golden Guardians here, costing them a little bit more time compared to Wunderbar, which definitely matters as they're now pulling those spider tanks. There's no way to skip those spider tanks, I mean, theoretically, you could skip one of them, but the one that stands on top of the platform needs to be killed to spawn the robot that gets you to the last platform. There we go. That's why they also focus that robot or the spider tank. As you can see, the Golden Guardians have that one marked with a triangle marker to be sure they finish that one down first to get that robot faster, because it has a little bit of a RP time before it spawns and before it's clickable. There we go. Now it spawns for Golden Guardians too. But yeah, still a little bit of a difference in favor of Wunderbar here.
Yeah, and I don't see this being a team that would give up that lead either, especially now that they have that battle res back and available for them as well, should they have any issues later at this point in the dungeon. This is a team that when they're playing well, it seems like they have a vice grip on the throats of the other team. It's like, you know what? We're not going to make any mistakes. You guys have to play perfectly to have any chance of beating us. And Golden Guardians, even though they haven't had any deaths, they've just made small mistakes. Hammer management on the first boss, slight bolstering mismanagement on that third boss. That's enough of a mistake against Wunderbar to give them the edge to win. It's so crazy just how on a knife's edge this is balanced between these two teams. I don't really know what it's going to take for one team to look significantly better than the other here.
Yeah, and they know how close this matchup is too between those two teams. I mean, Wunderbar committing the battle res when only the Pummeler was alive there on the first boss is definitely also just something that shows they know how close this matchup is, and they know that every single second counts, and that's why they committed it. Because I feel like any other matchup, they would have just kept the battle res. Yes, you can finish off that boss without the healer. It's going to take a couple more seconds, but at least you have the safety of having this battle rest. But not in this, and they actually mismanaged the bolstering here on Wunderbar's side. As you can see, those bots are really high HP still. Herman is dropping really low with that debuff on him that was bolstered by the mob and therefore did more damage.
Yep, but he did get it removed at the last second there, so they didn't have to worry about the damage coming out from it. And they are going to be engaging aerial unit R21Z, a King Mechagon bot here, significantly before Golden Guardians, who are still dealing with this bolstering pack. And the bolstering kills Shakib here. That's going to be that death on the board for them, so there's no longer a 5-second differential here. And they're going to have to res him up before getting to this boss. That's going to be more of a time loss for them, and they're going to end up engaging this boss a solid 20 or 25 seconds behind Wunderbar here. There has to be some major issue during this boss from Wunderbar to give Golden Guardians a chance back in, because we know that Xaylia just seems to be more efficient at pumping out that damage than JB is.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we saw Wunderbar pulling the boss after Golden Guardians, and they still managed to beat them on boss timer just because they were playing this boss more efficiently. So it's not looking good for Golden Guardians. If Wunderbar does the same thing as last time, then it should be going in their favor unless they make some sort of mistake. They still have their Awakened mobs up, so this is still a very difficult thing to chew through. They did use their Bloodlust on the beginning of that boss, while Golden Guardians, because they used their Bloodlust later on Kujo instead of the first boss, they did not have it ready on the start of this pool, and therefore they are committing their Bloodlust in the second phase. So they definitely are going to have the second phase done faster for them. But it's a huge difference as you look at the boss HP right now. Wunderbar is just so much faster because they pulled the boss so much earlier.
And we know that the Bloodlust shouldn't be a major issue here for Wunderbar, because before, when they pulled the final boss at the exact same time, Golden Guardians had the Bloodlust available for the actual King Mechagon portion of the fight, and they still couldn't kill the boss as fast as Wunderbar here. So with 50% left on Aerial Unit and Awakened Mob still alive, you have to imagine that this is just a slam dunk win here for them.
Yeah, they are now in phase 2, while Golden Guardians are still fighting those Awakened mobs as well. And they really are not having an easy time. As you can see, the Awakened mobs are still up. And you definitely need to finish off the Awakened mobs before you finish the aerial unit. There's no way for you to speed this up. On some other boss fights, sometimes we see the teams just try this Hail Mary thing where they focus the boss instead of the Awakened mobs to speed up the kill in case they know they're behind. But that doesn't work here, because if you finish off the aerial unit, you will get stunned. And if you still have the Awakened mobs up, they'll just kill you while you can't do anything about it. So they have to finish out the Awakened mobs first. And Wunderbar now, I mean, they're already on 60%, and Golden Guardians not even now in phase 1. This is going to go to Wunderbar unless they make some sort of huge mistake here, which I very highly doubt, just because this fight, it is tyrannical. But oh my god, the two things from beyond almost finishing off Maris here as he had to use his acceleration to stay alive.
Excuse me, sorry. That was a scary moment there from Mirez, though. And he doesn't have that aspect of the turtle available either for him, so this could be a horrible moment for him here.
So, I mean, he was trying to run away from those things from beyond, and he was in this corner and couldn't go anywhere. That was incredibly scary, but did manage to stay alive. And we see some of those Giga Blasts going through on Gingy, and they still have some defensives available. We also see Zalia, of course, still having a lot of mana left, so it should be fine. And we also see just Zalia still doing 50k DPS while keeping the whole group alive. And there we go, Omega Buster going down. It's going to be the first game in this grand final going to Wunderbar, but they still need to win 2 more, so nothing's over in this match.
I mean, look at the time there. 30 seconds faster than their previous one. I was almost choking on my water by how fast it went. That was a crazy match for them.